Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Shivani Sen, and on behalf of T-Hub and Government of Telangana, I extend a very warm welcome to each and every person present here. Ladies and gentlemen, T-Hub comprises of three components. T-Hub, which is the incubation and acceleration hub. T-Works, India's largest prototyping facility, which will be coming up shortly, and the image gaming and AR/VR tower that also will be coming up shortly. All these three components together will be home to more than 2,000 startups, becoming the epicenter of innovation in India, and will take India's technological capabilities to new heights. T-Hub's primary endeavor is to ensure that entrepreneur is in the middle of everything, and whatever we do at T-Hub is essentially to keep the entrepreneur in focus. And the facility is here to support the entrepreneur ecosystem for our country's future. Let's gear up to witness the biggest celebration of the spirit of entrepreneurship at the world's largest innovation center, T-Hub. Let's hear a huge round of applause. And thank you so much to all of you for being present here today on this momentous occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to T-Hub Innovation Summit. Let's kickstart the day with our first panel session of the day. Here we move on to our first panel, Opportunity Hyderabad. We all have seen Hyderabad substantially transforming into the emerging technology hub of the country, the fastest growing IT avenue in the country, a destination to many corporates to set up their campuses and R&D. Let's listen to the panel to find many more insights and opportunities Hyderabad has for us. Please put your hands together as I invite on stage the moderator of our first session, Mr. Srinivas Kollipara, Group President, Startup Ventures, Xelpmoc. Welcome, Srinivas. I'd like to invite our eminent panelist, Mr. Anand Arvind, Senior Vice President and General Manager, Core Business Founder at Zenoti, Mr. Keshav Reddy, Managing Partner, Reddy Futures Fund, and Mr. Sateesh Andra, Managing Director, Endiya Partners. I now hand over the panel to Mr. Srinivas Kollipara.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. For those of you who've been waiting for a long time, really sorry about that, but you know how it goes on launch days. It's wonderful to be here with this incredible panel. But before we start on the panel, I just want to take you back to the year 2014. At that time, Hyderabad was we would like to call it an emerging ecosystem, but the truth is the rest of the country ignored us. There were 5 cities that were talked about when startups were mentioned. We were not one of those 5. And so a few of us got together and decided, let's try and build that ecosystem out. There were people doing things, but mostly operating in silos. And the idea was just, how do we bring everyone together to help startup founders? At the end of the day, it is about the founders. It is not about the building. It is not about T-Hub. It is not about investors, academic, corporate, any of those things. It is about founders trying to change the world through what they do. At that point, the state of Andhra Pradesh split into 2. Telangana was formed as well. And literally the day that the ministers were announced, I got a phone call, a few of us did, from the then IT minister, Mr. K.T. Ramarao, who said, what I want to do is I want to put Hyderabad on the map. Not just on India's map, but on the global map. Innovation is missing, but we have all of the ingredients. What can we do? From that came the seeds of what became T-Hub again. So 2015, November was when we launched the first building. Today, almost 7 years later, we've launched the second building. And you're all here for that, so thank you for all that you've done for that as well. On that note, let me ask each of our panel members to introduce themselves. By the way, I'm Srinivas Kollipara. I was the first person came up with the idea. I was the COO and became the CEO later. I currently work with a company called Xelpmoc.
Thank you, Srini. Good to meet everyone here, and I think it's a pleasure to be here. I'm part of the T-Hub Investment Committee, so I think in that role we're invited. I think for those who don't know me, I'm Keshav Reddy. I introduce myself as 3 parts. I've been an operator in GVK Airports and GVK, the pharmaceutical business, for many years. And then I also started a couple of companies. This is my fourth company now. So I'm on my fourth one. And then I also started a family office VC fund many years ago. So about 2015 actually, around that same time. And now we manage about 30 companies, seed, Series A sort of investees, and we have about 6 unicorns in our portfolio. And I think in terms of return profile, we're 90th percentile in return profile in India. So I think that's probably one of the higher ones, but great to meet you all, and I'm looking forward.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
No.
So, hi everyone, I guess you can hear me now. My name is Anand Arvind and I'm one of the founders of Zenoti. A little bit about Hyderabad. In some ways I'm biased because I have lived here since 2005, so 17th year going. The longest time I've spent in any one city in my life. Have been visiting here since 2002. I was in the US, then we set up a company called Sum Total. Its roots in Hyderabad in 2002. We spent about 8 years building that up, growing it to more than 1,000 people. It builds enterprise software for large enterprises across the world. So customers like Walmart, Citigroup, American Airlines, you name it in the Fortune 500, we used to deal with that. After that, we saw an opportunity in terms of looking to build another company, and we focused on the wellness space. So Zenoti focuses on building software for wellness businesses. That's spas, salons, medi-spas, and fitness businesses, including group classes, gyms, and others. And I think we, again, since we had our roots in Hyderabad from a long time back, again, we started this in 2010 in Hyderabad. We realized that the worldwide markets are important, the US markets are important, but our base is a very strong base in Hyderabad where we have almost 800 people here. And we used to be in Cyber Towers. I think it was kind of iconic at the first building that was built, we moved into it I think a few years back. Now we moved into another building and continue to grow here.
Thanks, Srini, and good morning, everyone. My name is Sateesh. I work for a venture capital fund called Endiya Partners. I'm an alumni of JNTU from here. Last 25 years, I've spent time as an entrepreneur, half of it as an entrepreneur, and the other half, other side of the table, as an investor. And when I was returning, I had a dilemma whether I should go to Bangalore or come to Hyderabad. There's a gentleman sitting here in the first chair who was fairly instrumental in convincing me to come to Hyderabad, J.A. Chowdhury. Very happy that I made that decision. As Endiya Partners, we are one of the very few early stage VC funds, primarily headquartered out of Hyderabad. We invest across the country, and our focus areas are technology, which includes SaaS and deep tech, healthcare, and financial services. We've invested in a good set of companies from Hyderabad. Rohit is here, founder of Darwinbox, who gave us the opportunity to be part of his journey. Other companies like Ekin Care, Signy Energy, Capita, which is a private market exchange, and a couple of more, which we're going to be announcing actually in the next few weeks from Hyderabad. Glad to be here. I think this is a very, very auspicious moment. I think along with soft infrastructure, you also require the hard infrastructure, to be able to bring in the credibility for that ecosystem. And today, very, very happy to see T-Hub Phase 2. What you folks all sowed seeds for a great foundation, I think is blossoming. Very happy to be here, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Satish. Let me just come to you again for a second, right? By the way, you must have noticed that every single person on this panel has lived and worked in different cities and different countries, in fact, as well. And yet, all are based here right now, which is a choice that they had. They could be anywhere, and yet they've been here. But Satish, just going back to that question of, you having to choose a city, and Mr. J. Chowdhury convincing you of that. What made you choose Hyderabad then, and what's changed since then?
I come from a place called Anantapur. My parents still live there. It's only 140 kilometers from Bangalore. Actually, from Bangalore airport to my house, I can go faster than Bangalore airport to Kormangala, right? So clearly, the choice was, again, while going to college, majority of the time, either for entertainment or shopping or anything, even for healthcare, we would end up going to Bangalore because of the proximity. After spending, 16, 18 years in Silicon Valley, when I was making that choice, there were three factors. I really liked Hyderabad because if you really look at the quality of life is amazing. ISB, I live next to ISB. On my left is Triple IT, on my right is ISB. Right opposite to me is Pullal Gopichand Badminton Academy, right? And next to that is Brahma Kumaris. And it's 30 minutes, any time of the day, any day of the year to the airport. And if you're just going on with your carry-on, I don't think there's any other airport in the world that allows you to get to the gate the fastest way, right? Literally, I mean, if you have a boarding pass, actually in 5 minutes, you would be at the gate, right? And that used to be the old days prior to 9/11 in US. So when you really look at access, infrastructure, educational institutions, healthcare institutions, quality of life, Hyderabad is amazing, right? And to me, I'm a very, very firm believer that capital is a commodity. Capital chases the intelligent people, right? And smart entrepreneurs, wherever they are, will attract capital. It is not the other way around. All the time we keep talking about we don't have enough venture capitalists in the city, or we don't have enough, other components, supporting components of the ecosystem. So the decision was made then because I was fairly emotionally involved at ISB. We used to do Thai ISB Entrepreneurship Conference. I was a small volunteer with Pullal Gopichand in helping him build that academy. And then looking at all other components, I said it was a no-brainer to come to Hyderabad.
Thanks for that. In fact, same thing, Anand. You didn't grow up here in Hyderabad, right? You also lived in the US for many, many years.
Yes.
What was that like?
So I lived in the US for almost 17 years, and I think then when we thought about returning to India, I think even at that time, we had set up Sum Total and its office in Hyderabad in 2002 because we felt Microsoft is here, there is talent here. It is a city we're familiar with because some of the other founders were familiar with it. So we said, okay, we'll go there, we'll find the talent, we'll build it up. And I think that worked out well over a couple of years. And then, I had to move here to take care of some of the work here in the business. And your choices are the same things. You have Delhi, you have Mumbai, you have Calcutta, you have Chennai, you have Bangalore and Hyderabad. I think the choice we made that time, I think the same criteria still apply now. Bangalore traffic was bad in 2005. I think it is bad now. And I studied in Pilani. So even in the 90s, when you used to, go near Delhi, your eyes used to start burning. I don't think that has changed at all in Delhi. And those things, just haven't changed. And I think since I was born and brought up in Chennai, I wanted to avoid the humidity of Chennai and Mumbai. So then the choices were very, very simple that Hyderabad is really a nice place. And I think the other thing I would add is, some people say that Hyderabad summers are hot, but what I've seen is, it's only March middle to June middle, it's a bit hot. The rest of the 9 months are beautiful here. And I think people fail to forget that. It's a really, really nice place. And from an infrastructure, like Sateesh had mentioned, there are so many things that are good about it. Some others were noticing and saying, hey, my son was saying, hey, there are straight roads in Hyderabad after back in Chennai. Just simple observations of, roads, large roads. Even now with all the traffic, it is still not bad compared to, say, a Chennai or a Bangalore. Bangalore, I've seen, is, incredibly scary going from the north to the south. You go to the airport and then you want to go to the south, it's another 3 hours. Whereas, we have this amazing ring road that we take for granted. We don't realize, how amazing it is that no other city has something like that, which we've seen. So, a lot of pluses in Hyderabad. And I think over the last few years also, we've seen significant investments in infrastructure, even during the last 2 years when people were at home. I think infrastructure is evolving at a very rapid pace to make it easy for us because there's so many flyovers which have come up, which have really unblocked traffic for people. And I think that is key to, getting people to come and work in Hyderabad. Like Sateesh also said, if the talent comes, then the capital will chase it. And I think while people talk about Bangalore may have better talent or Hyderabad may not have, I think we have never found that as an issue. I mean, we are able to hire, we do very, very complicated, complex software. We're able to find the right talent here. And I think the other advantage is you don't have, people tend to stay for longer when they are in Hyderabad in those companies because fortunately or unfortunately, there aren't, as many, interesting startups as Bangalore, which is some ways a good thing. Maybe that will change in a few years and then we'll figure out how to deal with it.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a really important point. And again, this may sound like we're pitching Telangana and this particular government. None of us are actually from here originally. It's the fact though that infrastructure has been, the way that they're building the infrastructure out here has been quite amazing and it's still continuing. Of course, there are still some traffic challenges, but compared to most of the other cities, it's negligible. Coming to you, Keshav. I mean, the three of us represent the old, the older group. You're the next generation. You again, though, have been, you had 3 startups in the US. You've worked out there, obviously, and yet you could have chosen to be anywhere, and you've chosen Hyderabad again. And you play 2 different roles. I'm not sure if you want to talk about that other one, but you have a stealth startup. You've chosen to do that here, a city where, again, traditionally people have thought it's very hard to hire. Again, we're saying that it's not true necessarily, but you still chose it. Why?
No, I think that's absolutely right. So I am a founder of a stealth startup, and we had this same discussion maybe in December, later part of last year, saying should we start in Bangalore or in Hyderabad? And honestly, those are the only 2 choices if you wanted to seriously build a company. And obviously, we're in the business of hiring good talent and retaining them. So if you really look at the analysis, there were a couple of factors why we stayed here. The most important one is people want to live here. If you compare, people are frustrated with Bangalore traffic. They are irritated with the cost of living in Bombay and the pollution in Delhi. So if you really remove those 3, you have Hyderabad as a leader. So that was one of the factors. Second is retention. I mean, in Bangalore, I obviously play 2 hats as an investor. So I see the problems that our investee companies go around in Bangalore. There's 6 to 8 months retention. People will triple their salary. So that it's not sustainable. So we actually decided, okay, let us build a company out of Hyderabad. One, because the talent pool of engineering is phenomenal here. I think because of the FANG companies, the quality of talent, the culture the team builds is phenomenal. So it's a combination of talent plus retention. And then third is, I'm always a fundamental believer of alignment, right? You need to have alignment. If you see the city of Dubai or Singapore, they've succeeded because the leaders have set a vision and the companies have actually executed on it. The airlines are aligned and the airports are aligned. I think you're seeing a similar sort of alignment of stars here, wherein the leadership has decided something. You have so many participants who are actually contributing. You have the public infrastructure that's helping, and people are coming in. I think slowly and slowly people will come and start building companies which are phenomenal out of here. And I completely agree. Triple IT and ISB are phenomenal ecosystems, and that will breed to each other. T-Hub as well. So I think a combination of all these factors will align, and that's why we stayed here. And interestingly enough, we're a team of 15 people now. 7 have moved from Bombay, Bangalore, Delhi for us. They have moved completely. So that just shows that people like living here. And for younger people, they want to go to nice bars and restaurants, have nice places to stay, have a good office, cost of living. I mean, everything is aligning in the right direction. So I think that's why we decided to be here. We're a 1 office, 1 location, no remote office in the next building. So I think it's worked out well for us. And I think you'll see a lot of companies like that decide to move out of here or be based out of here.
Thank you for that. Yeah, Satish, you had something to add?
Sorry?
Did you have something to add?
No.
Okay. So that's actually a really good point. I mean, again, going back to 2014, 15, it was really, really hard to attract people to Hyderabad. You had to really pitch. I mean, people thought of Hyderabad as a very sleepy town, the city of the Nizams, right? The Nawabi lifestyle. You just can't get work done. And most of our startups, the minute they got to the first round of funding, would move to Bangalore because of talent and access to investment. We're not seeing that happening anymore. In fact, anecdotally, my own company, and Keshav knows this because we were neighbors in our last building.
Yeah, so this is a funny story. The founder of Srini's company is a hardcore Bangalorean. I mean, he is the most Bangalore person you can meet. And he moved last year during COVID to Hyderabad. So that just shows actually.
Yeah.
That just proves my point.
Absolutely. And the other thing about Hyderabad is once people move here, they don't want to leave. We see that happening a lot as well. So I think that part is on the rise as well. One question that I had, Sateesh, for you is, on the investment front, how, obviously you're looking at startups across the country, and including Hyderabad, right? What do you think about the maturity of startups in Hyderabad today versus what it was a few years ago?
I think the maturity has increased significantly. And this is across the country. I mean, I came back to invest for DFJ, one was the global venture capital funds. Between 2007 to 2011-12, we used to see startups with a single founder. But today, last several years, we're seeing startups with multiple founders with complementary skills. If someone is really good in technology, they're pairing up themselves with someone who knows marketing, someone who knows sales. So you're getting a complete team. So I do see, it needs to obviously improve a lot more, but I'm fairly happy. But if I were to kind of digress a little bit, a lot of people ask this question, right? So Bangalore versus Hyderabad. I always tell them, you should not compare. You can never compare ecosystems, right? That doesn't mean you don't observe and learn the good things from the other ecosystems. You need to. There was a big debate between Silicon Valley and LA, right? LA couldn't be what it is, right? What Silicon Valley is. And for a very long time, New York tried to replicate Silicon Valley, Austin, Seattle. They couldn't. Boston, to some extent, right? So let's just take Hyderabad. In last year, we've had 3 IPOs. We've had Rainbow Hospitals, which started as a startup, pretty much, right, in healthcare. Now we had MedPlus.
Yep.
And then just before that, we had a stellar IPO, Laurus Labs. Yes, they are not D2C companies, they're not e-commerce companies, they're not edtech companies, but they're also real companies with real products and profits, and they've grown large, as a startup, went public. And if you really look at, a bunch of unicorns, and I know other cities have many more unicorns, we have Darwin Box, we have Zenoti, we have HighRadius, of course, some of their headquarters may be somewhere else, but majority of operations here, and then we have Greenco, right? Which has raised billions of dollars.
Right.
So, to me, I think, let's not compare and let's not feel the lack. Let's appreciate the abundance. It grows, right? When you really feel the lack, it also grows spiritually. So, to me, I don't see a big difference in the quality of teams, right, that come and pitch to us in Hyderabad or in Bangalore or in Chennai or in Pune. Then what's the problem? Why are they not as successful? It's about access, right? When you get access, then smart entrepreneurs create playbooks. Again, I'll digress for a bit. A lot of people ask me this question. Let's look at not comparing two great individuals, but more of facts. Prakash Padukone started Prakash Padukone Badminton Academy several decades ago in Bangalore. Gopi started it in 2006 in Hyderabad. When India won Thomas Cup, 90% of India's team is from Gopi's academy. Then if you ask the question, why did this academy produce so many top world ranked players and not the other academy which got started earlier? It's very difficult to find the answer, right? So what we need to do is the educational institutions, corporates, investors, incubators, accelerators, and most importantly, the successful entrepreneurs, who are here, who are sitting there, they need to network and they're doing it, right? And they need to share their playbooks. So that gives access to the up and coming entrepreneurs and they will create better playbooks. Because when you see a company in your neighborhood doing really well, you get inspired. To begin with, you get inspired. The second step is you start believing that I can do it too. Now, the third step is you will go a step further and you will do it better than the predecessor. So we need to create an environment that appreciates abundance, that gives the confidence, that enables access. So to me, I see that improving every day.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. And I think you brought up a couple of very, very pertinent points, right? Hyderabad versus Bangalore. I mean, it's an automatic thing to come up. It's a thing that you use to inspire yourself. But at the end of the day, it is an ecosystem. And, you know, I've got friends in the audience here that I can see from Delhi, from Bangalore, from Bombay, all of whom have helped me along the journey with T-Hub. And it goes both ways. So it can't happen on its own. Everybody collaborates. It's just one way to look at things to inspire people to say Hyderabad versus. The other thing I think about Hyderabad, and I think most of you have felt that, is just, it's a very friendly city. It's very easy to get connected to people. One of the comments that was made by a lot of the corporate leaders who've moved to Hyderabad is, very quickly you get to know everybody in the ecosystem that you need to know. Do any of you have any experiences like that you've found?
The other thing I would add is, Hyderabad is a very safe city. We shouldn't discount that. Compared to some of the other cities, Hyderabad is extremely safe for people who are working, and sometimes people who are working late in the night. As a company, it's a lot more comfortable to have people work in the night, go back late. There have been, hardly any issues for us, touch wood, for a company, or in general as a company, compared to, I think, some of the other things you hear in the news. So I think we shouldn't discount those aspects of it also in building this ecosystem.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. So, Keshav, when it comes to your stealth startup, you're saying that 7 of those people have come from elsewhere, right? It's very easy for us to talk about Hyderabad because we've got those connections, we've been here for a while. What's their experience been like?
It's actually been phenomenal. I mean, people move here. By the way, people who come from outside Hyderabad think high-tech city is Hyderabad. So they don't know anything outside of this place. So it's become a very different city in many ways. I travel the longest because I live in Banjara Hills. So no, but it's they've had an amazing experience because the teams here, the people here, the real estate developers here. I think kudos to them. They've created the environment here that's so conducive for them to move in, set up shop, and just start their life. I think that's really easy, And the reason why people moved also is we will literally have the free ticket to come to Hyderabad to visit us for the interview. It's barely an interview because it's in our co-working space. And once they come to the building and they see the building, they're like, holy shit, I want to move here. I think because they see the travel time, they see the building, and I think that really convinces the person. And we've been very strict in hiring. We interviewed 380 people. So for us, culture is most important. So we try extremely hard to make sure we maintain culture, because that's the most important thing that, for a company of our size, that matters. So we actually hire for culture first and then for competency. So.
Okay. So, Sateesh?
Yeah. No, Srini, I want to add a point, right? So, there is no sandhill road in India, okay? So, 20 years ago, if you really look at Silicon Valley was epicenter of venture capital and startups. That one road, Sandhill Road, is kind of where you end up to raise capital. But even in US now, it's distributed, right? If you really look at the US entrepreneurship journey from 70s or 80s, 40, 50 years, Sequoia itself has turned 50 years as a venture capital fund, right? So 50 years of journey, trillions of dollars of capital, and maybe, 1 million companies. That's a very, very, very large data set. We're a fairly young and nascent ecosystem, right? If you look at 1996, 97 to 2006 was kind of the phase 1. Post-financial crisis, 2008 to 16 is the phase 2 of India's entrepreneurial journey. Now we are in the phase 3 of our journey, right? Of course, we should catch up and leapfrog, much faster. We don't need to take 50 years. We should shrink the cycle and do it in 25 years, no doubt about that. But it's equally important to be patient, to understand our own inherent strengths, and see kind of how you take it to the next level. A lot of times, as investors and entrepreneurs, our time is spent in action less of reflection, right? The one comforting thing for me in Hyderabad is I end up traveling almost out of 52 weeks, maybe 40 weeks to Bangalore, right, in a year. I spend 2 days, 3 days. For the next 4 days, I get to reflect so much in peace, right? That allows me, I'm not in that noise. I'm not lost in that noise. I can process and pick the signals that I need to pick. Because as a VC, at the end of the day, you're making maybe 12 or 14 investments a year, right? Depending on your strategy. So probably that's also a good thing even for entrepreneurial teams to sometimes stay away from too much of noise, but also have quiet time for reflection.
Right. We only have a few minutes left, so I'd love to see if anybody in the audience has any questions for the panel. Put your hands up if you do. No questions, really? All right.
I have a point actually. I think the one thing, just to add on yours, I think in the way we invest as a family office, it's a velocity-based investing. Where are the best investors going to the best deals and where they're based? So we've actually not done many or zero deals in Hyderabad because we've not seen that velocity. But I think now there are obviously 3 unicorns, and then once you see a lot more velocity investments, suddenly you'll see a bunch of grade A investors showing up here. So I think it'll be so fast that you won't realize it. You know, how India hit 100 unicorns so quickly, it'll be a similar trajectory. And I think that will be exciting for the city.
Yeah, I think we have some questions, so we'll just wait for those. And if you could say who, if you want to address anyone in particular.
I'm Srinivas Reddy from Hyderabad. This is to all of you. Sometime back, I listened to Mr. N.R. Narayanamurthy on a television event. He said that the skills are at a discount every 5 years that he has noticed. The first time the Infosys hired in the early 90s or mid 90s, they had to train only for 3 months. And 5 years later, they had to train for 6 months. 5 years later, for about 9 months. How do you see the situation now? It's addressed to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think from our side, it's all do it yourself. So we don't train at all. People figure it out. But I'm sure the experiences are different. From our portfolio company's side, it's similar. People go figure it out. The days of the IT consulting, training, those don't exist anymore, at least in new age tech. And with all platforms being DIY, really you don't need all those skills to be trained as well.
So the other thing is, ours is typically product SaaS companies. You're not hiring a lot of people, you're hiring a few people. So you can be very selective in trying to hire the people who maybe already have some of the skills, and then you have to train them for a few months on your product. So it's very, I think, different from the Infosys model where you're hiring fresh out of college and then training them on a skill and then putting them on projects. So given that you are paying a premium for people in the market, you do want people who already have some of those skills, and a lot of the candidates have those skills now. It's not like they don't. So I think it may be different in, say, a product company than, say, in a services company.
Morning, my name is Archana. I work with the government of Telangana. So I have a question that has 2 parts really. One is addressed to relatively newer entrepreneurs like Keshav. 2 points or 2 pieces of advice you would give to younger entrepreneurs here who are starting out on the journey. And the other part is to the more senior folks on the panel. 10-15 years down the line, as you're an entrepreneur, what are the other couple of things that people need to keep in mind to continue on the journey? Because you could lose steam, you could lose focus or vision. So I hope I made myself clear. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I'm actually a believer of you have to be there at the right time in the right place. A lot of entrepreneurship is luck. It's being knowing the right person, someone helping you out. You see, the most successful entrepreneurs actually have some of the advisors who've really helped them in the early journeys. So I think my advice to any entrepreneurs: show up in this building, find those mentors, those advisors, be around those people, take all the advice and help, and really hustle and figure out a way to get what you want. I think that's what good entrepreneurs do, at least in the early days. And then, of course, they become mature and they have to actually find the right delegated teams to do that for them.
Yeah. So I'm a very strong believer first-time entrepreneurs and young entrepreneurs are the ones who have changed the world. It's really not serial entrepreneurs as much. Entrepreneurship is not for faint-hearted. It's a marathon. It's a sprint as well as a marathon. Every day you sprint, but then you go to bed knowing that you're running a marathon. So there's going to be many cycles, right? There are many crusts and troughs, up cycles versus recessions. So you need to figure out how to navigate, both headwinds and then take advantage of tailwinds. But also equally important, and one of the things that we care about a lot as a venture capital fund, a lot of our returns come from 3-4 companies. Out of 20-odd investments, 3-4 companies generate outsized returns for us. But we do think about the 16 other entrepreneurs who spend 6 to 8 to 10 years of their precious life. And it's opportunity cost for them. So you have to be fully aware. Many times ignorance is bliss. You can't analyze too much. If you analyze too much, you won't start the journey. But be aware that this journey is not going to be easy. What people say once they become successful is not often the truth. I mean, we all market, right? To sell is human. I mean, I will have a lot of skeletons in my closet. Be very, very aware that it's going to be a very, very tough journey. Be prepared. There's no winning or losing in entrepreneurship. You always win because that experience is invaluable. And it is something that I consider as a very sacred journey. Yeah.
So just our context, when we started also, we did the research to say that if you're building a vertical B2B SaaS company that is going to have a meaningful outcome, it's a 10 to 15-year journey. So I think you have to think in those kind of terms if you want to build a globally interesting outcome. And other thing which is important is you will have a lot of tough parts you have to go through. The most important thing is to survive. And I think even the next 3 years, I think for most companies, the most important thing is survive to be ready to play the game when it becomes interesting. So that is very important for people to realize that you will have hard times and you have to go through that and keep going through, like Sateesh said, day at a time. You can't think 1 year later, what will I do? I have to, make my paycheck to my employees the next day if it's payroll day. I have to make sure that happens.
Satish, I keep seeing a lot of news items about exodus of startups going to Singapore and other countries. Is this still happening? And what is why those startups move from India to those destinations? How can we correct that?
I think that's a great question, Jay. The whole Indian Venture Capital Association, Ministry of Commerce, Startup India, everyone is thinking very hard. I think establishment of Gift City to create a similar structure like Mauritius or Cayman Islands or MAS in Singapore is kind of in that direction. Today, entrepreneurs find it very easy to raise capital and even exit if you are located offshore. When you headquarter in India, sometimes it becomes very difficult. I think under leadership of Minister Piyush Goyal, he's bringing all of them onto the same platform. If you look at all of the regulators, whether it's SEBI, whether it's RBI, CBDT, even including IRDA, the pension fund, to try and simplify as much as possible. I think it is necessary. I think some companies need to be headquartered outside because they are globally oriented. But companies that have significant presence in India are serving India markets and Indian customers. I think if you make it easy for them, they would be very, very open to having their headquarters back here. So I think it's work in progress. How soon will it happen? I don't know the answer, but there are a lot of efforts in that direction.
I just want to add, I think absolutely agreed. That's very, very important that happens. And the reason why people actually do it is because of Y Combinator. I mean, that's the real reason, because they force you to actually set up in Delaware. So I think, you know, a factor of these things plus that would actually change the ecosystem. Make it easier for investors to invest, at least based in India, because you have round-tripping issues and you have other regulatory issues that you don't want to be part of.
So we have to wrap up now, but before we leave, maybe each of you could give me a little bit on, if there are people in the audience who want to move to Hyderabad, what would you say to them?
I would say, you know, the weather's good and this building is great, so relocate here.
I think I'm very biased, but I think it's still the best choice in India for a lot of factors. So I would encourage you to come in here, and there's a lot of interesting companies here. And I think with T-Hub, in 5 years, you'll see a lot more.
So I've always felt for the 45 or 60 days of heat, it gets compensated by the mangoes that you get right in the season. So for me, that has never been an issue. I think analyze what's critical for your business. Post-pandemic, it has become a virtual world. You have distributed workforce. Even if you have, of course, presence in other cities, you could have decent amount of presence here. And you choose the reasons. I mean, if you are a biotech, life sciences, pharma, bunch of these companies, even a deep tech, there's no reason not to be here, certainly. But analyze, you know, your critical success factors, pick the ones that make sense. But having some presence here absolutely is a no-brainer. And if you want to increase that presence based on your experience, that's fantastic.
Yeah, again, just to close, I think we have an incredible ecosystem here. We have a lot of people who are here to help you figure out whatever it is that you need. You have T-Hub, of course, if you need any help on that. Yeah, come to Telangana. Thanks to everybody on the panel. It was a great session.
Thank you so much. We request you to kindly stay back on the stage, ladies and gentlemen. What a brilliant discussion. Some of the very important and interesting points that I noticed was talent attracts capital, and of course, infrastructure attracts that capital or the investment, so to say. It is a very safe city, so one huge round of applause for the Telangana police and the government here that keeps us all very safe. Friendly people, yes. If you're in town, you can surely test that whether people here are friendly or not. We definitely are. Ladies and gentlemen, the alignment of goals was a very important point here. The alignment of goals between the government and the corporates here is extremely important. That is what drives all the startups here to their destinations. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, I now invite on stage Mr. Paneerselvan M., the Chief Innovation Officer, T-Hub, to please join us on stage and hand over the token of appreciation to our panelists and the moderator. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, a small announcement for all of you. Parallelly, the other sessions are also going on, the registered ones. So please note the sessions that you had registered for, and you can make your way for that. Moving on here. The food tech industry in India is emerging as the fastest growing industry in the country. And one of the major contributors to this success is an online food ordering and delivery platform, Swiggy. We kindly request everyone to please move to the lounge for networking. We will begin with the next speaker very shortly.